Pixar has many iconic characters, from classic Pixar duos or iconic villains. So why not rank every single one of Pixar's villains? This ranking will include every main villain from the movies. No shows or specials, just the movies. Now without further ado, there's a lot of characters to talk about, so let's just dive right into it.
I thought you could cheat the universe! Well, you thought wrong! I'm the accountant, and I'm here to bring you a- Oh, you're not-
Now, does she count as a villain? She's really just doing her job, and it's just following that. I don't really qualify her as a villain, more as a background B plotline. She's not really a villain, she's just takes Joel away when the plot needs him to be taken away. Because Terry is just here to do that. More as that B plot, more as that background, funny character at some moments plot, but is never really considered a villain. I do not consider her as a villain. Like I said, she's just doing her job. And even when she does capture Joel, her role in the movie's over. She has no more role after that, so then you kind of just forget about her as a character. She's really just here. She has fun moments, but she's just here. Is she a villain? Probably not.
Tell me where the crystal is. Think we're not the same, Buzz? You're already me.
This completely ruined what Toy Story 2 set up. We get this line from Toy Story 2.
I am your father.
Granted, this was a Star Wars reference, but it made it canon to Buzz. It made it canon from Zurg and Buzz in Toy Story 2. So when you do get to Lightyear, he says, I am you from the future. How does that line up with that line that I just showed you? I am your father, I'm you. That's not the same thing. And since that this is the movie that Andy saw that made him like Buzz Lightyear and want him for his birthday, you can't have these plot holes in here. Especially since that the Zurg toy is inspired by this movie. And if you don't really have the plot line up with that phrase, it just all falls apart. Hence in here. So you're telling me Buzz's father is himself? Explain that to your kids. And that's just counting the plot hole of the character. When you get to the actual villain of Zurg, he never represents what Toy Story 2 Zurg is. Zurg in Toy Story 2 is what this movie should be basing it off of, because Zurg was based off of this movie, supposedly. If we throw away the plot hole, forget that's a thing, having Zurg be Buzz Lightyear from the future is fine, but the movie never really played it off as a smart way. Because the reason why the present Buzz turned is because the future Buzz just wants to save the day, and the present Buzz wants to make sure that the woman she worked with still has that life that she had. So then they turn. Well, guess what? You're the same person. You should have the same perspective on things. Even if one went through more drama, because you're the same person. Somewhere in the back of that mind, it's the same person. You just have to explain to your future self what she went through so he understands the perspective. So this all falls apart once you actually think about it, and this plot twist just never worked. Plot hole reasons or story reasons, they do not work. This dragon is not a villain. It's a curse. It's more of that last obstacle just to get Ian and Barley separated, just for that emotional moment at the end of this movie. This dragon's not a villain. It's just a curse that takes the form of a dragon. It's only important to the story, but it's not a villain. And to be honest, you guys probably forgot this dragon was even in this movie. Don't lie to me. You forgot, didn't you? Does not have enough screen time to fully give Thunderclap the right that he needs. Because when he's first introduced, he's a terrifying villain who just eats the prey after the storm. That's a good concept. And in that scene where he's introduced is the best scene of the movie, because you forget about him until the final act where he all of a sudden shows up again. It's like the movie was like, we need somebody in this final act. Let's just throw Thunderclap in there. He does not need to be in there at all. He feels like he was just put in there just because. It ruined his character. He did not need to be the main villain. If you continued off of the intro that he was set up in, then maybe you could have had something better, because he was introduced as a terrifying villain. But since you forgot about him throughout the movie, and then even when you do get to the final act, it's over by the time it starts. So then you basically forget about him again. It's just a forgettable villain, and they completely wasted him because his introduction was a lot stronger than the actual villain. They only hurt the character even more, and that final act still feels out of nowhere. You could have wrapped up the movie before the final act, but no, you needed the villain, you forced the villain in there, hence you ruined Thunderclap's character. She only counts as a villain because the movie centers her as that antagonist. But she's a mom looking after her daughter. All she did that's villainous is turn into a panda during the four-town concert. Other than that, she's not villainous, she's just a mom. She tells her daughter, no panda, no four-town. That's not a villain, that's your mom. But I'm really only counting her as a villain because of that panda fight. Where even then, yes, she's this big old panda, but they use that as an excuse to kind of wrap up the movie, but with a fight. Again, kind of like Thunderclap, that panda battle did not need to be in this movie to wrap up plot lines. It's there, and it's resolved by twerking at your mother, but did it need to be in there? Probably not. And Ming Lee, she's a mom, not a villain. That's kind of why she's as low as she is on the list. She's not a villain. She's just a mom looking after her daughter. If you look in that perspective, then yeah. But since the movie's not in her perspective, it's in the main character's perspective, she's going to come off as a villain. But you're a mom to a teenage daughter, so you're going to come off as a villain to her no matter what you do. Darla! When you have an entrance like that, then yeah, you're a villain. In the fish's eyes, she's Pennywise.
Darla, your uncle will see you now.
She's a kid who doesn't know any better. So, she's only a villain because we're watching the movie in the fish's perspective. And like I said, when you have an entrance like that, when you have scenes like that, they're treating you as a psychotic person. But in reality, they're not. They just don't know better. After all, she is probably like 5. She's 8? Well, then never mind everything I just said. That is extremely immature for an 8-year-old to be doing. An 8-year-old should know by this point that shaking a bag kills a fish. You should know that by 8 years old. She's acting like my 5-year-old cousin sometimes. And even then, she knows shaking a bag kills a fish. An 8-year-old should already know that. She should not be acting this way for an 8-year-old. She's extremely immature. And even if you look at the movie, she has no role to do. She's there at the dentist. Is that big old threat in the background, but then when she actually is on screen, she's just there, screams at the bird, shakes Nemo briefly, but then he gets away. And then Darla never shows up in this universe again. For a threat that you tease throughout the entire movie, she just shows up and leaves. She could have had more of a presence, but besides her psychotic nature for that entrance and tapping on the glasses in the fish perspective, she's 8. She should know shaking a bag kills a fish by this point, especially since she did it last time when she was 7, or early age, but she should still know. She's still learned from her mistakes. I can't forgive her if she's an 8-year-old. 4, maybe, but she's 8.
My son, are you prepared to become the greatest war machine in the universe?
Now, when the movie started and they first introduced Lord Qui-Gon as the villain, I was all in for him as a villain. But then, the movie slowly went on, and since it feels so rushed and chopped together, by the time he's actually a true villain, taking over this alien spaceship, he's not that much of a villain. He's a father looking after his son who just so happens to be in this army. If we're judging him off of his villainy, we just don't get enough of it. I liked what they did with the character in the first half that he's introduced, but then by the second half, since the film is still chopped together and they're telling all these different storylines, it only hurts his villain even more. We didn't get to see enough of him to make him a true villain from Pixar. He could have been. There's a lot of potential, especially since I liked what they did with the first half of his character, but since the second half didn't really match the same way the first half did, kind of falls apart. And because the movie had too many people working on it, that's the reason. I really want to know what the original cut of this movie would have been, because it won't feel as rushed and choppy. And maybe Lord Qui-Gon could have been a way better villain. He started off with potential, but then by the end, it was like, Yeah, you have good moments with his character. There's good heart told in the story through his character. But you could have done so much more with this character that kind of disappointing by the end of the film, and I just wish they did more with his character.
Behold the Underminer!
Some may argue he shouldn't be on this list because he's a very small role, but I would argue that there's just enough amount of screen time for me to judge him as a villain. But he's more serves as that comic book style villain that the Incredibles fight at the start of Incredibles 2. It was nice seeing what his villain arc is. It's nice seeing his powers, how he robs banks, all that stuff, going underground, digging a hole. I enjoyed all of that, but we still do not get enough of the character to actually see him, to actually judge him even more. I would argue there's enough of the character to include them on this list. There's still not a lot of information to fully judge them. He was a fun little opening to Incredibles 2, but it would have also been nice to see just a little bit more of him. Because his role is still very much small. It's still basically that opener to any superhero movie where it just starts with them fighting some villain. That's exactly what this is. Not going to be the main villain, just very much the side one. And maybe Incredibles 3 will bring him back. I don't know.
You are good.
Now, on paper, the twist could have worked a lot more, but in execution, it didn't. Now, I'm not one to hate on this character. I actually enjoy her as a villain, but it all comes down to the twist factor. And when you look at the twist factor, no, it was not executed right. I like her, what they do on the boat. I like what they do with Screenslaver before, but just that twist, they did not know how to execute it correctly. Because it just doesn't work. I like her motive, I like the tech side of things. That I'm all fine with. But what I don't really like is that you spend all this movie setting up Screenslaver. Screenslaver is a good villain. You could argue Screenslaver was a rightful spot after Syndrome. But then they reveal that it's not actually Screenslaver, and it's her instead. You could have had her Screenslaver instead of just having a pizza guy in the mask. Because you kind of ruined the idea of Screenslaver, which kind of affects the twist that it's actually her, because she's kind of obvious at the same time. So it kind of just ruins the character of Screenslaver. That's disappointing because Screenslaver had potential. And then you ruin it with a twist. Like I said, I like what they do on the boat, but it's all matters of that twist factor that significantly brought down her character for me.
Johnny Worthington, president of Roar Omega Roar. What's your name, Big Blue?
The bully, the jerk, the popular kid at any school, Johnny Worthington III is represented by that. He's really just here to be that opposing side for Mike and Sully. To be that, during the scare games, he's just that team that keeps winning. He's the team that wins all the time. He's just here for that rival against Mike and Sully. Because you don't really want a teacher as the rival, you want a student. Hence, he's in here for that reason. The bully, the jerk, the popular kid, it's all him. All Johnnyton. Now, I like his character. He's cool. I wish we see more of him. But, as a villain, no. He's not that intriguing. He's a bully. They could have done more of his character. What we did get, I liked, but as a villain, he's not that strong. He's just a bully. A college student aren't really going to make that much of intimidating villains. Hence, it's all in here with Johnny.
Dude.
Now, I like the idea of a prince being cursed with a bear, and the bear is now a killer, basically. I liked all that, and every scene with Mor'du is actually, you're on the edge of your seat. You care for Merida and stuff. I'm one who actually likes Brave, and he kind of connects to the theme of the story, showing Merida, this is what your mom could become, or you if you actually went down that dark route. He feels forced into the final act. I liked all the setup, I liked all the story that they had with Mor'du's character, but when you actually do get to the final act, they're like, we need a final fight. This is put the bear up against Mor'du. That's forced. That did not need to be in there at all. But I enjoyed all the setup to the character. I enjoyed when Merida met him in the cave. I liked all of that. It's just that final act brought down the character because he did not need to be the final battle of this film. The film was not around the villain. It's about the curse and their family theme issues. Not Mor'du. So, forcing a villain into your movies is probably not the best idea, hence why he's brought down, but I enjoyed all the setup with him.
This is Al from Al's Toy Barn, and I'm sitting on here. Ow! I think I'm feeling a deal head
Now, the only true villainous thing he did was kidnap Woodies, which, in the toys' perspective, that's evil. And since I love the characters, that's evil. But after that, he has no role to play. He's just a collector trying to sell the toys. I enjoyed the route with the collectors for Toy Story 2. I enjoyed seeing that perspective of things. But Al is not a villain. After those first 15 minutes of the movie, you kind of forget he's a villain at all watching the rest of the film. Because he's just there to sell the toys. He has no villainous act except for the beginning of the film. And even then, it's nothing like heartbreaking, wrenching thing that a villain would do. It's just a simple villain, a simple act of a villain at the beginning. Nothing big though. He does his job for the start of the film, but is not a villain throughout the rest of it, so that kind of all falls apart by the end. Now let's face it, she's only a villain because she's an antagonist to the characters. All she's doing is looking after her school. Looking after who should be in the scaring program and who is being bad and who's not. She's the president of the school, the principal of the school. She's not doing anything bad. She's just the president. She has to control certain things. That's kind of what makes her the antagonist, but she isn't doing anything wrong to make her a villain. I just like her character a lot, which is why she's not low on this list, because I actually like her as a character. I just can't sit down and call her a villain. At moments, I guess she's a villain temporarily, but she's not a villain in the sense of syndrome-wise. She's not a villain, so it's kind of hard to put her any higher on this list when she's not a true villain.
With Finn McMissile gone, who can stop us now?
Although he's not the main villain of the movie, if you haven't noticed, I haven't talked about him yet, more on that later, he's more of a henchman. He's the main henchman of the movie. The main villain in a way because he's the one that we actually see a lot of. He's the one doing all the acts we see. He's the one torturing the cars. He's the one behind all the stunts, pushing the buttons. He's doing it because he's essentially the main leader, besides for the actual twist villain. He's cool, I guess. He serves his job. He has more screen time than the actual villain. But since he's not the actual villain, it kind of brings him down because, in the end, he's another henchman. And I really only included him on this list because he has more of a role than the main character. Because I'm not really counting henchmen on the list, just more of the main person. But since he is the main person, because we actually see him more than villain, that's why he counts. I'm one who actually likes Cars 2, but by the end of the day, he's not the main villain.
That was some pretty darn nice racing out there.
By me!
He's that jerk car. He's the racing opponent to Lightning McQueen. And by the end of the film, it's just here to represent what Lightning McQueen was. That selfish side of Lightning McQueen that's all in Chick Hicks. And it basically shows what Lightning McQueen was like before he went to Radiator Springs. A selfish car that just wants to win and take the fame. That's who Chick Hicks is and who Lightning was before. And that's all his role is basically, is just to represent what McQueen was if he didn't go to Radiator Springs. Yes, Chick Hicks has some funny moments, especially at the end where he's like, why is no one celebrating? But it's more of a bully than a villain, but has more of a role than other bullies I mentioned so far.
We were just out for my early morning stroll, and look!
Now she's really the only Toy Story villain that's not actually a villain. Now granted, when she's first introduced into the movie, she's a villain, but we forgive her way too early on for her to be considered a villain for the rest of the movie, because the conversation she has with Forky just shows us her motive. She's not bad, she just wants to get with Harmony. So, we forgive her way too long for her to be considered a villain, and especially since that a lot of the Toy Story villains, which I will talk about way later on, actually feel more villainous. She's more sweet and gentle, and by the end, she gets her happy ending. Now granted, out of all the main characters that are new characters in Toy Story 4, I like her the best. But I'm ranking this based on villainy, and she's not a villain.
Oh, it's Signor Vespa.
Now he is the town bully, but he's hilarious. He's a hilarious character. It matches the tone of the movie. The tone of Luca is just fun film. So, what do you do with that? What villain do you incorporate in there? A fun villain. Now yes, he's a bully, he's a jerk, but he has some hilarious lines, and some of the lines that the characters say to him only boost that up even more, that he's just a fun character to have in this film, and the film wouldn't be the same without him in here.
Who wants to watch me eat a big sandwich?
Matches the vibe of the movie. Now, is he fully villainous? No, but is he a fun villain? Yes. Now, as a villain, like I said, I'm basing this off of a villain ranking. He's not fully villainous. Now, he does try to kill Luca, and obviously there is some villainy in there, but it's hard to take him seriously when he's fun to laugh at.
Wait, who was that?
I put McQueen in there. Give you some real competition.
Now, solid villain overall, but we needed more of him. I like his character. He should be the best villain in all of the Cars franchise, but we do not get enough of him. Besides for the start and end of the film, you just forget about him throughout the rest of the movie. You hear mentions of his name only because the plot revolves around Lightning trying to beat him in the race. That's why he's only mentioned. But you forget who he really is in the middle half of this film. Yes, great introduction, great end, but in the middle, we don't get enough of him. And which is disappointing because Jackson Storm had a lot of potential going for his character. The new generations of Cars, Jackson Storm had a lot of things going for him, but he is brought down because you forget about him in the middle, which is disappointing because you could have done a lot with Jackson Storm, and it sucks that we will never see him again after this film. To be honest, I just wanted more of him by the end of things, but as a villain, he had a lot of potential going for him, and you could have done a lot more with him. But real quick, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider hitting that subscribe button, and let's continue.
Say you are! Deactivate!
Bomb deactivated.
As stated before, I'm actually someone who likes Cars 2, which these days is like a 50-50 split if you like Cars 2 or not, but I'm someone who does like it. But that's a topic for another time. I'm aware that people do not like this twist villain. They say it comes out of nowhere, motive doesn't work, Mater's just spitting out nonsense to piece together that it is him. But if you ask me, spy movies tend to have out of nowhere spy villains. That's why it kind of works for me a lot, because for me, what Mater says actually does make sense, his motives does make sense, and all these different ideas line up to match him. Now if this wasn't a spy film, I might have problems with the twist, but since spy films that I tend to watch actually have twist villains like this that comes out of nowhere and is unexpected, that's them, it works for me. On all levels, this twist villain works. I just would have liked to see more of his villain side. We don't really see him doing all these villainous things. We're just told that he does it. I guess we see in the monitor with the deep faked voice, but we actually never see him doing it all. Which is kind of hard to do when it's the end of the movie. So it kind of makes sense, but we don't get to see enough of him as a villain, and the henchman has more of a role. But I like this twist even more, so sue me or not, I don't care. But I like this twist. I like Cars 2, which kind of boosts him up too. So I'm just a fan of it overall. It's just following orders. There's nothing truly villainous there just because he's following orders. He's a robot. He's commanded to do certain things that sometimes he can't control. It's not their fault that they have to follow the A113 plan protocol because they're under that control. It's basically being hypnotized. They're under a certain control. They can't get out of it. So they just end up being villainous by the end. Now, Otto's high on here because he's a good villain. I like him as a villain, but he's under control. It's not his fault he's a villain. He's still choosing to do the action because he's commanded to do it, but he's not 100% taking into action. He's not 100% in control. Otto still does a lot of things to make him a good villain, but not 100% for me. He's just doing his job. He's here just for that last fight at the end of the film. Yeah, they're going to be the same without him in here, but he's not 100% a villain to me.
Tell your chef Linguini that I want whatever he dares to serve me.
More of the last opponent for the climax of the film, wrapping up Remy's character arc, saying anyone can cook, and prove that the food critic who doesn't like Gusteau's actually likes it now because of Remy. That's Eagle's role. Now, he serves as that terrifying presence throughout the movie, setting up to when he actually tries the ratatouille, and let me just go on a side note here. When he takes the bite of that ratatouille, and learns why he fell in love with food in the first place, of how good at Ratatouille is. It makes me hungry every time for Ratatouille, although nothing in Ratatouille I like. It just makes me hungry. That's how good that scene is. But he's just a food critic. He's not really treated as a villain, just for that final opponent, that final antagonist for the climax of the film. But he serves as a great one to do that too. I love what they did with him. Like I just mentioned, the scenes he into, it works. Serves as that presence, that final presence before the end of film, and it all works for me. Now Skinner is hilarious sometimes when he's saying lines like this.
But the rat! You must... It stole my documents.
He's also a good villain. Not wanting to give up the restaurant is a selfish thing to do. What a villain would do. And even after he lost it, he still refused to let it go, while he's consistently calling for a rat problem, and is there even when the food critic's there for that ratatouille.
Who cooks the ratatouille? I demand to know!
Just to see this place get taken down. So even though he lost it, he still refuses to give up on it. And he never overstayed his welcome when he left. He always had meaning to the story, and like I said, is a funny villain because he has funny lines and a lot of memorable moments. And what's so smart about his writing is that he's not trying to kidnap a character like a villain would. He's just trying not to get Linguini to know that who his father is. And then after that, he's just trying to close down the business. So the second half is more villainous, the first half is no, but Remy found the no. So there goes your plan. He's funny, but he's still also a great villain in this film.
You're out of your box!
Never played with. Never opened. His whole life in a box. No wonder why he's a villain. Your whole life in a box? You're gonna be grumpy with that. But he's doing whatever it takes to take Woody down with him. He does not want to get played with. He has no idea what it's like to be loved by a child. So, he knows eventually everyone gets thrown away, kids grow up, you will be forgotten. It's a good thing by the end of the film he actually is getting a child, so hopefully now he knows what it's like to be loved and played with. But nothing wrong with how he's portrayed as a villain. A twist villain that makes sense for his motive and makes sense why he's a villain, doesn't feel unexpected at all. But I just like other villains from Pixar more than I like him. I don't have a problem with him, I just like others more.
I know. It's yours.
Now this twist is unexpected for a couple of reasons. One, Randall is already a villain that was established the entire time. So, it's kind of unexpected just to throw another villain in there, and even then, Waternoose never seemed like a person that would be a villain, but his motives all line up for him to be a villain still. While still not wanting to throw out Sully.
Because of you, I had to banish my top scarer.
He's doing whatever it takes to keep the company in order. He does not want the company to come down. It's his family business, so he has to do whatever it takes to keep the business going. That's why all his motives work. That's why he works as a villain, because that's something a villain would do. Proven by some of the other villains on this list. He's willing to do whatever it takes to keep the company in order. Now, we don't see him much as a villain, but when we do, he's chasing Sully through the hall. And yeah, that tells his villain side automatically. That's what makes him a villain, and a good one with that. I just would have liked to see more of his villain side a little bit, but we see enough of him to make him in the top 10.
An old man taking his house to Paradise Falls.
The movie starts and tells you absolutely everything you need to know about Charles Muntz. Now the smart thing the movie does, it makes you forget about him entirely. It just seems like something that would be the introduction of the movie just to introduce Paradise Falls. But little did you know, Charles Muntz actually shows up later in the film, which is a smart writing move. And since you didn't see him, his twist comes off as clever because you forgot all about him. So then when he is doing his monologue, a really good monologue, granted with that, he's revealing he killed all these explorers and is willing to do nothing in his way. He's going to get Kevin no matter what. He's going to get the bird. Because he's been doing this for like 50 years of his life. He's going to accomplish it. And during his monologue, you feel the suspense when he's talking. And it keeps that suspense for every single time he's on screen. He's willing to do anything to these characters just to get Kevin. And for the final battle on the blimp, it proves that he takes things to the extreme sometimes. And he's an absolutely great villain. From his death to his introduction, it's all there. Charles Muntz was the perfect villain for this film.
Hello, everybody! Oh my gosh, I am just such a huge fan of yours.
Now let's be honest, anxiety is a villain to us all sometimes. And that's why this movie kind of works so well. It's because it's tackling the theme of anxiety. The first movie tackled the idea of sadness. Now we're getting anxiety. And anxiety is played off as a villain in this movie. That's why she works so well as a villain. Because we all experience anxiety. We all experience stress, trying to fit in, all of that. We all experienced something like that before. And that's why anxiety works so well as a villain. Is because she actually is a villain to us in real life. And just the theme that the movie tackles as well only helps her case as a villain. And throughout the entire movie, she's doing whatever it takes to make Riley fit in. She's trying to stop Joy from coming back to stop her. Exactly what anxiety would do to us in real life. Hence why anxiety kind of works so well as a villain.
Until 1942.
Now there are multiple factors into why this villain works as well as he does. Part of it is the twist. Throughout the entire movie, you're setting up that Miguel is his great-great-grandson. So when we actually do get to the reveal that Eresta Del la Cruise poisoned Hector, it's the set of things that no one was expecting. And then we see that he throws out Miguel with Hector just so he can keep his legacy. Although, at the time, he still thinks Miguel is his great-great-grandson. Just showing that he's willing to do anything to keep his legacy in order. And that's something that even a person in real life would do if they were famous like that. Which is why he works so well as a villain. As we see during the entire final battle, he's willing to do anything. He threw Miguel off the building to keep his legacy. Although by the end, he got what he deserved. All this combined with the twist is why he works so well as a villain.
I'm in the zone today, Sullivan. Gonna be doing some serious scaring, putting up some big numbers.
While Waternoose is the villain, Randall is the main villain of this movie. He wants to be number one. He's sick of Sully always being number one. So, what does he do? He kidnaps Boo to try to get those last few points in the screen can energy. And what's so smart about him being a villain is that he's not after Sully and Mike until he learns that Boo is actually with them. He's just that rival until he's not. He's willing to torture Mike, push Sully out of the door just to get Boo. He wants to be number one, something a villain always wants to do. He works so well as a villain for that factor. And I already discussed earlier why Waternoose works because of Randall as well.
No, that's Scud, you idiot. That is Sid.
Now Sid works more than Darla for a few reasons. Sid is more psychotic. Darla is just treated as psychotic because she's in the fish's perspective, but Sid is just straight up, who plays with toys like that? He's torturing them, he's blowing them up. Obviously, he's much more of a threat than Darla, and he has much more of a screen time than Darla as well. Granted, you shouldn't be playing with your toys like that evil laughter, but the entire film, he is treated as a threat, which, of course, if you were a toy in that perspective, yeah, you want to get out of that house. So it shows that threat for Woody and Buzz to escape. Sid is a huge threat to these guys, and that's why he works so well as a villain. Pixar's first villain, and it still works for me. From the moment he's introduced to the moment he dies, Hopper still remains that threat to these ants the entire film. He is just in charge. He's making sure he's always in charge of these ants, because Hopper even stated that when ant stands up, they all stand up. He's scared of that happening. It eventually does, but he always wants to tell them that he's in control. So just the entire movie, he's just that terrifying creature to the ants, because he just seems like this much more powerful being until the ants learned he's not. Hopper works so well because he's just that leaning threat. He's scared of the ants are scared of him. But Hopper doesn't show that he's scared of them. Always showing that he is on top. He wants to make sure of that. So from his introduction that we see him, it just shows why we should fear him as a villain. Because he just wants to be in charge. He wants them to give him his food. He also manipulated them into the circle of life, saying that the ants are supposed to gather food for him. He just works on so many levels on why he's such a great villain. Pixar's second villain, and still one of the best.
The sunny side, folks. I'm Lotso Hugging Bear, but please call me Lotso.
Now he's introduced as a sweet, huggable bear, but real quickly switches over to one of the best Pixar villains, turning Sunnyside into a prison where he is in charge. He wants to stay in charge. And a toy with absolutely no sympathy or heart towards others. And we see that during the fire scene in the trash, where Woody and Buzz boost him up to stop the button, even after saving him from dying. And still runs away in the end. Absolutely no sympathy, no heart. That's why he works so well as a villain. The movie makes sure you hate him by the end of film. So you hate him throughout, but then once you do get to the trash scene, Woody and Buzz save him. So then you're thinking, oh, I don't hate him as much now. But then he runs away. So then it made sure you absolutely hated him by the end. It checks all the boxes a villain needs to check off. They think they're right. No heart towards others. It's all there for a villain to be perfect. All it takes is for that little click to change once he learned he was replaced by accident. And just like that, it's a journey to one of the best Pixar villains. But not number one just yet.
Sure, it was difficult, but you are worth it. I mean, after all, I am your biggest fan.
Best villain in all of Pixar. And it all circles back to the start of the film, where Incredible meets Buddy. Just that rejection of, I don't need help, don't work with me, shaped Syndrome into who he is. His entire life, he's been building up just to get his revenge on Mr. Incredible. And he did a lot of preparing. He killed off multiple different superheroes. He prepared all these robots while killing all those villains off just to get to Mr. Incredible. And it's all shown in that absolutely fantastic sequence, showing that Syndrome is a threat you do not want to mess with. And just a twist of Buddy at the start of the film that who you forgot about till Syndrome reveals it is just a creative move. And Syndrome just represents everything great about a villain, especially in the superhero genre, where it makes fun of things that villains do while still being a very intimidating villain. Just that simple decision Mr. Incredible made at the start of the film made Syndrome into the villain that he is. You see him as a threat, you do not want to treat him nicely, hence why he's the best villain in all of Pixar. And if you like this video, maybe leave those on the side of you too. Like, subscribe, see you guys next time. Goodbye.